I speak on behalf of the 160,000 affected women who have signed the petition that Theo and I created at the beginning of this year. We would feel a lot more confident if there was a date that we knew that the government were working towards.
Can you give us a date, Mr. Murray?
Look, I'm not going to say a date right now because I don't want to come up with a date that I can't keep as a promise.
A national inquiry has strongly criticised the NHS maternity system in England, saying it is not set up to deliver consistently safe, high quality and compassionate care.
We've just been hearing from Baroness Amos, who chaired that government commission review, which also found unacceptable racism and discrimination embedded within the maternity system. The government has accepted the report's main recommendations, which is to appoint a National Maternity Commissioner. We're joined now by the Health Secretary, James Murray. Good morning, Mr. Murray.
Good morning.
As Health Secretary, to see those words in black and white, that the maternity and neonatal system in England is no longer fit to deliver high-quality, compassionate care, what did you think when you read that?
I think it's shocking, but it's actually not surprising because we've had so many reports in recent years showing the pain, the trauma, the devastation that failings in NHS maternity and neonatal services have caused to women, to babies and their families over many years. I think what Baroness Amos's report sets out something I think we all thought was likely, something we all knew, something we all know from conversations with our friends and family, which is that NHS maternity services are just not fit. They are failing too many women and babies and their families across the country, and things need to change.
So what do we do? How do we change them? One of the suggestions is the creation of a maternity and neonatal commissioner. But for women watching this morning who are pregnant and due to give birth, how much difference is a commissioner going to make? Is that really going to make them feel any safer?
Well, the commissioner, the decision to establish that role is an important role in driving accountability and making sure that women's voices are heard at the heart of government. When the commissioner is in place, they'll be able to hold the system to account and to make sure that women's voices are being heard. Because one of the things that I've heard so many times when I've been speaking to women who have been affected by failings in maternity services is the sense that they're just not listened to, that they are ignored, that their concerns are disregarded, that maternity services do not respond to what they're saying, and that needs to change. We need to make sure maternity services are held to account, that we change the culture in maternity services, and I think the first step for that is to appoint this new maternity and neonatal commissioner who will be able to hold the system to account and help us as a government drive that change.
Mr. Murray, we have the maternity safety campaigner Louise Thompson here in the studio with us this morning, and I am going to ask her to ask you the next question.
Hi, Mr. Murray. I would really like to know when you plan on appointing this new role.
Great. Thanks for the question, Louise. So what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks? I'm going to meet with the National Task Force, which I chair, which will be developing the action plan for how we're going to change maternity services. When I meet them in the next 2 weeks, we'll set out the scope and the details about the maternity commissioner role. We then need to get it into legislation as quickly as possible so that we can appoint a person to that role. So we'll move as quickly as we can in the next 2 weeks, getting the details of the role pinned down by working with the task force that I chair, and then getting it into legislation as quickly as possible, because it's going to be a statutory role. So it will be a role that we can point to and say, this has real weight, this has real standing within the system, and we can really make sure the person who is in this role has the authority to drive change.
Louise, what do you think of that response, that basically a job description has to be drawn up, then it has to go through Parliament? It doesn't sound to me like it's happening anytime soon.
Yes, I think the thing, when I speak on behalf of the 160,000 affected women who have signed the petition that Theo and I created at the beginning of this year, we would feel a lot more confident if there was a date that we knew that the government were working towards.
Can you give us a date, Mr. Murray?
Look, I'm not going to say a date right now because I don't want to come up with a date that I can't keep as a promise. What I can promise, though, is that we'll have that meeting in the next 2 weeks to pin down the scope and the details of the role, and we'll then get that into legislation as quickly as possible, because I think one of the important things is to make sure this role has real weight and real standing in the system. And so getting it right, getting the details of the role right and getting it into legislation is really important to making sure that happens.
OK, but Mr Murray, this report is calling for urgent systemic reform, and there are hundreds, thousands of babies being born in hospitals across the country every single week, and we can't get a date on when this commissioner is going to be. I mean, can you at least give us an indication, like before the end of the year?
Well, I honestly don't want to give you a date that I can't stand behind 100%, because there's been too many examples.
Could the ambition be before the end of the year?
Well, I want to make sure it's in place. The commissioner role is in place and someone is appointed to that role as soon as possible. What I can tell you is by the end of this year, we will have produced a comprehensive action plan through the task force that I chair, and the role of the commissioner will be to help make sure that comprehensive action plan is then implemented. So by the end of this year, we will have that plan, which will be based on all of the recommendations from Baroness Amos's report, from Donna Ockenden's report into the devastating failures in Nottingham, other reports which have been done in recent years into failings in maternity services. All of those recommendations, rather than being accepted and sitting on a shelf gathering dust, they will all go into the task force. A comprehensive action plan will be produced by the end of this year, and then a key role for the commissioner when they're in place will be to make sure that plan is put into action.
There are so many other parts of this inquiry that we need to talk about, but so many people, critics of the review, saying it should have gone further, that it should have been a full public inquiry with statutory powers to call witnesses, and they would like that to happen now. Are they wrong to call for that?
They're not wrong to call for that. I can understand where that feeling comes from very strongly, a very strong desire for real accountability for people who have been involved in some of the failings in maternity services or involved in covering things up when they've gone wrong. I know from talking to families that some people favour a public inquiry, others have a different view on that. At this stage, I'm not taking anything off the table, but I think that focus on accountability is crucial. And if I can just say one important point on that, last week, in response to the publication of Donna Ockenden's report into what had happened in Nottingham, I announced that the new duty of candour, which will come into force once the Hillsborough law is in place, that will apply to future maternity investigations. So we've got investigations which Donna Ockenden is going to be undertaking into maternity services in Leeds, in Sussex. In those reviews and any future reviews, the duty of candour will apply, and that will mean we can never again have a situation where senior leadership in the NHS refuse to take part in the investigations. That helps to drive accountability and make sure that people in the future can't get away with not taking part in investigations which are taking place.
Mr Murray, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Louise, listening to everything that the Health Secretary was saying now, I wonder what you make of that.
Look, I think it's so important that everybody is speaking about this, and the time is now for change. It's interesting to hear about the duty of candour because I didn't know about that. But ultimately, it does feel as though the issues are consistently just kicked into long grass. And without having a firm date, I don't know whether... It just doesn't feel like the responsibility is there. So we will keep pushing, and we will not give up on this, and we will make sure that it happens.
And it was interesting from what he said just then that the idea of a full public inquiry, he said, was not off the table. He's not saying no to that completely.
Well, and he's mentioned about these subsequent inquiries into Leeds and the other hospital trusts. Ultimately, as an affected parent myself, I totally understand why other affected parents would want a statutory inquiry, because people want to uncover what's happened to them, and they want to get to the root cause of where all of these issues are and to see if there has been any criminal behaviour. You know, I totally understand that, because I wouldn't, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want there to be an investigation into my hospital. Is it going to get to a point where we only start to take this seriously if major central London hospitals are being investigated, will there then be a shift in perspective? That's how I view it.
Thank you so much, Louise, for coming in and for staying with us for that part of the interview as well. And for mums-to-be who are watching this morning and feeling anxious, have you got a quick message that you'd like to leave them with on a day like this?
I think the key thing is just to speak to friends that have been through the experience and educate yourself as best as you can. I do know people that have had amazing birth experience, so it is possible, but it's just about advocating for yourself and remembering that you know your body best. So listen to your instincts and remember the power of yes and no.